Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. They're making it harder for me to talk. I'm going to have to make this quickly here. So I'm going to release a video, if I'm still alive, about the rules of engagement in combat. Why? Why, you might ask? Why? You say you already have the Bible, because the Bible is vague and it confuses things. The Bible is like the Tower of Babel. How do you know that? Well, you know it by its fruits. Think about the Bible as a person called Baal. That person named Baal created 50,000 plus denominations. And many of them swear up and down that the Bible is perfect. Okay, then why are there so many people that swear up and down that it's perfect? It's safe to say that even now, there are some people who believe that they're right about their interpretation when they're not. For example, if someone was about to rape your wife, should you just pray? Should you turn the other cheek and just call the police? Should you fight with them? Should you try to kill them immediately? Should you just try to restrain them? What should you do? You see what I mean? There's some people who say just kill them immediately. Some people say no, don't kill them unless you really have to. And some people say that they would not resist, they would pray. I've come across people in my life, at least one person, I believe I was on the internet, and they said if someone came to kill their family, they would get on their knees and pray, and that they wouldn't resist them because they believe that's what it means, and it's not what it means, mind you, to turn the other cheek. So there's a need for clarification. And in the Bible, in Proverbs 16:12, it says that the throne is established in righteousness. Now, when I look at these scriptures, I keep in mind two very important scriptures. Luke 12:57, why don't you judge for yourself what is right? In John 7, I believe it's verse 26, which says, stop judging by mere appearances, but instead judge correctly. Instead, judge correctly. Judge, do judge, and judge correctly. Matthew 7, first remove the log from your own eye, then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. And there's different versions. One says plank, and so on and so forth. But as you look at this, you see that these things must be true. God gave you a brain for you to judge. Who should you trust? When should you pray? How should you respond to someone trying to rape your wife? What have you? And so, who is the most qualified to make the ultimate call and to proclaim the mighty acts of God, to deliver the divine judgment? That's me, the top martial artist ever possible. Part of the reason why the churches don't discuss this so much in popular culture is because it takes them firmly in the realm of martial arts. You'll see what I mean shortly. For example, when you think about the military, the American military, the Israeli military, you're thinking of a military of a secular state. So it's not something that has to do with what the military would do because they're following orders from corrupt states. All the nations are corrupt. Even Iran has a partial theocracy and a partial secular state. A theocracy is a state with a well-defined religious order that determines the activities of the state. That's not so much Iran. They have a kind of Western-themed government mixed with a kind of a Shiite Islamic state, or what they claim to be a Shiite Islamic state. Semantics, that's a story for another day. And so these things confuse the issue. Martial arts, say you're a samurai and you're taught to fight to the death over matters of honor, for example. Okay, in certain groups, in all groups, whatever it may be. Okay, that is a martial art. Mind, body, soul, spirit. What spirit? What kind of soul do you have? Do you have a soul? Mind, body, soul, spirit argument. That is a religious martial art argument, firmly in that category. What is the warrior when it comes to mind? Is it Conan the Barbarian? Is it Genghis Khan? Okay, the Lord is a martial art warrior, mind, body, soul, spirit, sharp, double-edged sword of scripture, sharp, refined, sharp, surgical strikes, surgical striking, warrior, a martial arts argument, period. That is how you would define it correctly if you're using logic. That is the divine verdict from God. Okay. So when you look at this, do you pray and wait for a vision? No. Logic would tell you you can't do that. Why? Because the government can hack your brain. What you have at this point is logic. How would you know if you had a vision or not? Your brain, right, would tell you. If someone hit you in the head, would it be harder for you to discern whether or not you had a vision or not? Yes, of course, because your brain processes the information, right? So you must rely on the logic. And the Bible tells us in Isaiah 5:16 that the Lord Almighty will be exalted by his justice, and the holy God will be proved holy by his righteous acts. And in Psalm 9:16, right? Psalm 9:16 says, "The Lord is known by his acts of justice. The wicked are ensnared by the work of their hands." That includes the work of arguing. They have some vision that they think puts them above, which it doesn't, the top martial artist ever possible, and his logic, and the logic that points to me. God is exalted by his acts of justice and the intense justice and the intense gathering of righteousness that occurs when one beats everyone at martial arts, when my top martial arts challenge them hiding, their spirits afraid, their spirits lacking the discernment to see the importance of accepting my challenge, okay? They couldn't do it. They couldn't even do that. If the Israelites did not rise up to Goliath's challenge, they would have failed. But in this case, I'm the one in the Spirit of God, and that has been proven definitively, and this is the end. Pretty straightforward. So now I have established that there's a need for a book about the rules of engagement, and yes, it will talk about things that show you that sometimes you are allowed by God at times to engage the military or the police. Even Driscoll, Mark Driscoll, a famous preacher, okay, obviously I don't agree with him about everything, said that it's always the politicians versus the prophets. Okay, so the politicians are always against the prophets. Does there come a time to fight against these people? Well, when David fought against Saul, Saul was technically the king at the time, and there was a war between Saul's followers and David and his followers. Okay? These people were sent by the state, see them as police officers, military, what have you. And David said, that doesn't matter. What matters is God's plan. Logically. Not some fanatic plan, not some fanatic's vision, but logic. Someone coming out in front of everybody, walking in the light, like it says in John 3, saying this is what logically is fair and right, fair and just and right, Proverbs 2. And so these facts prove definitively that I'm right and I'm required by God to present the rules for engagement to the best of my ability, and no matter what, people must follow me because other people fail to follow me. Therefore, there will not be a successor. After my flesh dies, there will be no way to do the work of God. That's what logic tells you. Again, you must rely on logic and not any so-called vision that you think your brain has received, because the government can plant that vision in your brain, and God would not require you to rely on something that is not reliable. God would expect you to judge for yourselves what is right and to not judge by mere appearances, but judge correctly, including the appearance of a vision in your brain when the government has the technology to do so, and they're downplaying the implications and the significance of that irrefutable fact. These are some dark times we are living in, and people are in like a trance and dreamlike state from mass mind control, and they use psychology and they use technology. It is so extreme, the technology that they have spent billions on data centers and artificial intelligence, tens of billions, probably hundreds of billions, and that big corporations themselves, even though they have a part in the process, are investing lots of money in ways to secure their data, to secure their information. They're concerned with information security relative to the government and private companies' ability to hack people's brains and to compromise the integrity of their security systems by doing that. You might have family in the military that you're very fond of, but I assure you, it is unwise to not be very aware. It is unwise to not have your guard up. Because what the government is doing, what the government of the world are doing, what the governments of the world are doing, what the private sector is doing, is wrong. And you cannot underestimate, you should not underestimate, you must not underestimate their ability to hack your brain and your family's brain and lots of people's brains at the same time. Eisenhower was right when he said that we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. Obviously, this is very serious. They'll probably try to change my voice to try to make it sound corny, but you should know that I'm right. You should know that it's time to stop reproducing. Beware of propaganda and the effects of propaganda as people disassociate and act like they're actually resisting the devil or the government when they're actually not. And they're just controlled opposition. They're refining their psychology in order to get you to do things that put you more and more in the devil's snares and traps. You're digging the pit deeper. The military-industrial complex and the rest of the New World Order, they're outmaneuvering you people more and more every day. And you have this kind of defeatist mentality. You're just giving in. You're giving up. The only way to resist them is to rally to me. I am the way to resist the New World Order. Do not have children no matter what. That command obviously comes from God. It's not a coincidence that I believe with all my heart that it's wrong to have children. There's a part of people that tells them that they should do what they shouldn't, which is reproduce, because that's your flesh, right? That's your survival instinct. That's your flesh. You know, it's like in nature, your group survival instinct to keep your, the species going. But that is not from God. They've made an unnatural world, so that instinct is contrary to God's commands.